In this video, we're going to explore solving quadratic equations by a process called reversing operations. In order to do that, we have to be a little familiar with what reversing operations actually is. To do that, we have to make sure we know how expressions are created. So in this problem right here, in the model problem 1, we said consider the expression x squared plus 1. Keeping in mind the order of operations, we want to figure out what happened to x and in the correct order. So first of all, I want to just read that. It says x squared plus 1. So what I think happened is we first squared x, and then we added 1. And that would give us our expression. Now, order of operations says we're going to do multiplication before addition and subtraction, but we're going to do any exponents before we do any of that. We do have an exponent that's 2, so we're going to do our exponent first, squaring x, and then adding 1. But to reverse it, we want to go backwards. So we want to get at what was that number. So let's say we know that x squared plus 1 equals something like 15. We want to know what value of x made that happen. And to do that, we have to reverse not only the operation, but the order. So if we had that step here of adding 1, that's how we ended. We're going to start by reversing that. So reverse adding 1, we're going to subtract 1. And to reverse squaring something, well, the inverse operation of that is to take the square root of that. But here's the thing. When I take a positive number and I square it, I know my result's going to be positive. But I can also take a negative number and square it and get a positive result. So it's not just simply, oh, let's take the square root. It's we have to take the plus or minus square root of that expression. Same thing when I have a problem like this. This is a parentheses expression here. The quantity x plus 1 squared. So if I'm reading that as x plus 1, okay, I think I add 1 first. And then squared. So I squared it. To reverse the squaring first, plus or minus the square root, and then reverse the adding 1, which is to subtract 1. And that'll get us there. So let's look at a more involved problem like number 4 here. Consider the expression 2 times the quantity x plus 5 squared minus 40. So if I'm following order of operations, it says take care of anything that's in parentheses first. So what's in parentheses is adding 5. Then I'm supposed to do anything with an exponent, so that's squaring. And then I'm supposed to multiply by 2. And then I'm supposed to subtract 40. That will create the expression, but now we want to go ahead and solve it, so we're going to work backwards. So list the operations necessary to reverse, add 40. Instead of multiplying by 2, divide by 2. Instead of squaring it, plus or minus the square root. Instead of adding 5, subtract 5. Okay, so let's look at some basic examples of this first, and then we'll get into some of the more complicated ones. Let's do one like number 3 here. We have the expression x minus 1 squared minus 8 equals 0. We want to solve that by reversing. So first, I want to create it. And to create it, I'm going to do what's in parentheses first, so subtract 7, square it, and then subtract 8. But to reverse, I'm going to go backwards. So I ended with subtracting 8. To reverse it, my first step is to add 8. And then I have to take care of the squaring, so plus or minus the square root. And then I'm going to add 7. So let's start with that. First step, we're going to add 8 to both sides. If x minus 7 squared equals 8. And then my next step is going to be to take the plus or minus square root and then add 7. Here's where I have to be careful, because the square root of 8 seems like it's okay, but it's actually a radical that we can simplify further. So I'm thinking about 8 and what I can break it down into. And I think I can break that down to a 4 and a 2. So if I did that, I would have the square root of 4 and the square root of 2. The square root of 4 we know better is just 2. So my final answer then is 7 plus or minus 2 root 2. And in our last one here, we have this expression, 2 times the quantity x plus 5 squared minus 40. And we already kind of worked with this one in the previous problems here. So to create, it's a plus 5, it's squared, and times 2 minus 40. So to reverse, add 40, divide by 2, plus or minus square root, subtract 5. So let's apply the steps. Add 40. So 2 times x plus 5 squared equals 40. Divide by 2. Plus or minus the square root. And one more step to subtract 5. But we're not quite done, because again, that 20 we can simplify. 20 I can break down into, whoa, that's a weird symbol, square root of 4 and square root of 5. So the square root of 4 we know is just 2. So this becomes x equals negative 5 plus or minus 2 square root of 5. And again, reversing operations, we want to know how is this expression created so that we can just go backwards to finish it.